Welcome back. It's now time to switch gears to talk about the state of the nation. We're being joined by the former DG of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council and a fellow Nigerian Academy of Letters, Dr. Osuntokun. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Well, Nigerians are reacting to a lot of things. So I want to see how much of those things we can cover. Perhaps the first place to start is this issue of levy, the cybersecurity levy that people are reacting to, that the NSA's office had spoken a few days ago that should be implemented. It's a 2015 legislation that was amended apparently in 2024, and the argument now is that there's a lot of these levies happening. So what's your initial reaction to all of this?
Well, it's quite difficult to unpack many of the issues that have dominated the airwaves, for almost the past 1 year. What I would like to know that is there a precedent for that anywhere in the world? Where you have a tax on cyber security. That is I don't know much, but I like to have an answer. I don't know anywhere, but I'm prepared to be educated where the idea originated and why. So, but I don't know, it's an additional burden as to know on the people, on the public, and this is not the best time to start piling, more economic pressures on the people. But really, at the end of the day, what is fundamental is that when you ask the people to make sacrifices, right, you yourself must be seen, to be exhibiting a sense of austerity, in what you do. I don't know, there's a mixture of policies, conflicting policies, or politics that ends up being a double jeopardy, but that's I don't know first if I want to talk about it, right? I like to talk competently on how it came about, where is the precedence for it, and whether that justifies, imposing another body.
Do you have the impression that, like some people do, that there are too many taxes?
Exactly, that is the point I was making. If you're having a lot of taxes, in a situation in which there is nothing in return, that is a big deal. Look, my own attitude to these things is that, look, societies go through challenges and crises. So to that extent, Nigeria is not unique. It's how you respond to that crisis that matters a lot. If you are saying that you are going to give student loans or whatever they call it, you are going to do this and that. That has not been done. And then you want to immediately now, while those are in abeyance, you now want to introduce another tax on the people. That is a conflicting, and where is the pressure coming from for you to do that? If you are going to do it, I doubt that this is the proper time to do it. Maybe in a year's time. And with all of it, it came out from the blues. People's minds were not prepared for it. You just add all of a sudden that there is going to be this on that, arbitrarily. So I said, well, whoever is going, the way government is addressing Nigeria's issues is lacking in one respect. And that is a consideration for those who will bear the burden of policies, because the kind of policies we're having now is more like, it's not give and take. You are just piling the burden, is on one party alone, and at a time that people don't have, almost everybody has economic pressure here and there. So from that perspective, I don't think I mean, look, I don't think the time is proper.
Yeah.
And you know, on top of it, you know, we are not a military government. It's you owe people explanations. Why am I doing this? Right? So, but you have not had that.
And some representatives of government have been speaking to that. We'll get to that, but perhaps it's important to also point out that there are a number of exemptions from the cybersecurity charge. Let me just go through maybe 5 of the long list. Loan disbursements and repayments are exempt. Salary payments are exempt. Intra-account transfers within the same bank or between different banks for the same customer, they're exempt. Intra-bank transfers between customers of the same bank are exempt. Other financial institutions' instructions to their correspondent are exempt. And it continues, about 11. But in response to why perhaps government is doing this, some of their spokespersons have been trying to provide an explanation. And what we're hearing is that, you know, that space, the cyberspace, is pretty much ungoverned, and everybody is vulnerable with hacks and, you know, financial fraud, some of which happen, you know, with the person who is being stolen from being helpless. And in fact, government systems are also exposed. And the NSA is saying we want to own this space. So to that extent, should we, you know, take a second, do a double take on the goal, the overall goal of this cybersecurity charge, and say perhaps there is a crucial objective that government wants to achieve?
Yeah, but what you have said, right? I have no reservation about the government taking charge of the cybersecurity section. What we're talking about is charge. That's completely different from imposing a charge. If you want to take over any function, right, on account of security implications, and so you are taking it over. But that does not, that shouldn't result, you know, in taxation. But let me confess that what you have just read out, you know, I can see that the government gave it a lot of, you know, consideration. You know, quite a number of people or transactions are exempted. In fact, when you were reading them, I was wondering them, so who is left? Who is left to
about
pay
16 exemptions, actually.
Who is left to take to pay the levy? So, but I crave your indulgence. I have not read that. If I had, I wouldn't have, you know, stated some of the things that I did. But what you again said about security implications leading to its being taken over by government has nothing to do with tax. That is the truth. What has that got to do with tax?
It's quite interesting. I saw a tweet from Dr. Joe Abba, who was saying, you know, it might even be tricky to exempt or to abide by the exemptions, because banks might be a bit afraid and say, what if we exempt this and realize that we're in the wrong? So they may just charge everybody anyway, because sometimes the implementation of these policies are quite tricky. But I mean, that conversation is absolutely ongoing, and we'll definitely stay on that. But just about 20-something minutes ago, Mr. Peter Obi put up a statement about this on X as well. So obviously this is being escalated, saying that this is too much. It looks like the government is more interested in milking a dying economy instead of nurturing it to recovery and growth. But what I want to ask you is maybe leverage on your experience, because you were appointed political advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo in 1999 to 2007. At that time, now president was governor of Lagos State, right? And so you go way back in some sense, and we saw the back and forth between the then governor of Lagos State and then President Olusegun Obasanjo in issues of, you know, revenue, minimum wage, and the rest. It was a major battle. But now, over 20 years after, do you see, or do you agree with those who say the president is sort of replicating the Lagos model at the national level? economically. Do you see anything wrong with that? Do you see a difference between the Tinubu of then and the Tinubu of now, basically?
You see, that is actually where one of the problems, actually a large part of the problem, you cannot use the Lagos state model or any state model for your governance. They are all quite a different kettle of fish. And that is one of the reasons why the government ran into a lot of difficulties, precisely trying to use that state government, apply it as governance at the national level. You are going to get into problems. All right? First and foremost, a governor can get a lot more things done if you are in the state, more or less we have experienced, and in the letter, you only have a situation on which there will be a conflict between the governor and members of the state House of Assembly. A lot of it had to do with power politics. So, but of course, the national level is a different kind of fish, for that. And even look, the kind of transparency, even if you do not wish to be transparent, right? There is a way that operating at the center, forces transparency to what is going on. If the Lagos State governor or government decides to buy jeeps for the Lagos State Assembly members, it probably will not attract the kind of things. So, there is a lot of this, like apples and oranges. There's nothing, of course, you can use the experience that you have learned while you are state governor, applying it to what, in terms of the substance of government, what you are going to do, what you are going to get, is a different kettle of fish altogether. So, and as I said, this explains the difficulties, often bordering on, naivety, that some of the policy decisions have been taken. Secondly, of course, is that the central government of Nigeria is not only different from the state levels, but the fact is that you have an omnibus central government. You have an all-in-all powerful government, which was not the intention of the Constitution. And as a matter of fact, without redressing that constitutionally, we are going to have a lot of problems. You see, many powers under the concurrent and residual list have been transferred to the federal government. Of course, a lot of that has to do with military dictatorship. Military dictatorship is top down. It's a unification control. So the era of military dictatorship has impacted negatively, on the Nigerian constitution and governance at the center. So, which is not, as I said, and again, look, I don't know whether it is the Lagos State experience that explains it. Look at the Lagos-Calabar coastal roadways. Now, of course, if you are a governor, you can choose to do any road you want to do. I doubt if it will attract it. But you look at this one, that apart from, professional interest, in what is going on, you also have to take into consideration the politics of it, or what you are doing. And why should it be your priority, for instance? I personally, if I were president, I wouldn't do so at this time. Committing $13 billion to a coastal rail, what? We have a whole lot of, let's say 70% or 80% of the existing road network in Nigeria is in bad shape. So the money, look, 10% or let's say 20% of what you want to spend on Lagos coastal, Lagos, you can fix, almost all the dilapidated bad roads in the country. And of course, the country will appreciate this but what you're going to call a legacy project. But I think you are reaching I don't know. The kind of mentality that is there in the government about how it's about its priorities and how to go about it confounds me a lot. Look, for instance, I will not say that the vice president does not need a lodge, a befitting lodge, right? After all, well, the previous vice president was living somewhere. I don't think the place is squalid. So if there was a place which the vice president was living before, so what is the logic? When you do the cost-benefit analysis, what is the logic of you taking away $15 million to go and build a new vice presidential lodge? So this is what I'm saying. You have to reflect.
All right.
You know, the rest of look. This is why people, if they're asking me to tighten my belt, the country is bad, is this, and now we are doing something about it. Okay, reflect it in your actions. There are things you should not prioritize as what you should do now. In terms of how you address people's problem. How does building what does it do to you? It's an ostentatious project. So if the president sleeps in where, will he wake up differently?
So let's take it further within the context of what you're saying as to what you would advise the president, because when we look at the numbers from when he was inaugurated as president, which this month, 29, to make it exactly 1 year, the numbers are in the red, all the economic numbers, literally, almost the basic economic numbers. So it speaks to the fact that the government may be struggling, even though it says it's a temporary pain. So what should be done differently to reposition the country?
Almost everything. You know, my own position is that we have a systemic crisis, right, in which you cannot isolate one problem and solve it and leave it at that. We're talking about roads, talking about security, agri. We are headed in a situation of we are going to encounter, if we are not already encountering, what food security crisis. And one of the main reasons why we are having that is that farmers cannot go to their farms again because of Boko Haram, bandits and things. So everything revolves. Look at light, for instance. The small scale, that really is they are the backbone of the Nigerian economy. The small scale operators, organizers and things like that, they use generators. A lot of people use the available power at that lower level to get their business going. So my own position is, look, you cannot, there's no way you can isolate one because they overlap. In that situation, what we are taught about in school is that you don't address it as a whole. If it is a systemic crisis, then you go back to where we should be, that you can do something about it, and it is a constitution. Right? Nigerians need a positive shock therapy. Even though everything argues for the fact of constitutional review, which people call restructuring. Now, restructuring, some people have capitalized and say, okay, you don't know what it means, you don't it's simply redistribution of powers between the first tier and the second tier of government. Why they call it the restructuring of power relations, right, between those two tiers of government. And it does not necessarily result in physical redrawing. You know, because I see this is where people are getting it wrong. It does not, the structuring they are thinking about is that you cut off, you make the second tier of government will be zonal, the Yorubas will be together, and all sorts of things. If you start like that, you are going to create a lot of crisis. And restructuring does not have in view that is what is going to happen. It may be consequential, right? Now, while you are trying to do it, it may result in the physical redrawing of the government, because this is the one area that people have been happening all along. That is not the restructuring. If you want to look at it that way, it is those who took Nigeria from the 4 regions in 1966 to the present 36 states that we have. That is if you want to look at the example of restructuring, which they claim they don't understand or whatever it is. Look at that. And many of those states were created quite whimsically, arbitrarily, right? In the Constitution, one of the criteria for you getting a state, first and foremost, is your ability to sustain that government internally. That you are providing, you go and read the 1963 Constitution, that you will be able, through internally generated revenue, to sustain what you want to. And that, of course, and the logic is simple. If you have that, you are not going to be a burden on the center. It will make you more accountable to the people, right? Because the money you are getting it from them, from the economy of the state. These days, they just go to Abuja, get money there.
And get the faculty.
First and foremost, so your citizens know it's like, well, you don't hold them accountability because that is...
So pardon me, do you support a 615,000 naira minimum wage, state police, all of those things? If you say that states must be able to cater to themselves at this point, do you see them paying 615,000 naira minimum wage, having state police and sustaining it?
615,000. Well, that is a joke. I don't think that they mean it seriously. To be fair to them, that's a non-starter. But you see, well, again, I'm talking about Nigeria, and I know that will be an overreach. In other societies, right, it is a rational proposition that 615,000 naira today, when you convert it to dollars, how much do you get? Not much. But within this country that we are in today, that the government, look, Argentina, I don't know whether you follow what has been happening in Argentina. The president there overhauled the whole economy within a year. The rationality, everything about it. So, but as I was saying, you cannot have a situation in which you are using money to buy jeeps, a state-of-the-art Land Cruiser jeeps, for 400 legislators, and you can this is what we are saying. Because of that, it is one of the reasons you are unable to pay a livable wages.
And let's assume that this would be a test for what this government's response would be to restructuring. Speaking of which, when the current president was governor and local government allocations for Lagos were withheld, the governor was very vocal in his criticism of the federal government, saying that the decision to not respect the Supreme Court's decision on this matter is a disregard, in fact, a contempt for the rule of law. And in that context, state governors are saying, look, we're going to hold our own meetings and decide what we can pay as far as minimum wage is concerned. So when you consider this, another test for this government in its own advocacy for true federalism, either it's 4 regions, state police, shedding of more powers from the federal government. What are expectations from the current president, who was a strong advocate for true federalism before he became president?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I was smiling because I was there once. Look, the thing that I noticed, you as a president there and subsequent presidents, there is no one who will become the president of Nigeria without the passive acquisites of power and so on as an individual. Who will want that decentralized? This is what I have noticed. That look, when you get there, it's difficult for Nigerian people, unless, of course, you are like the guy in Argentina. The thing is, how do I put it? You have so much power, so much resources at your disposal. So that is one of the reasons, right? That when they get there, it's typical for a president to say, okay, well, you're taking away powers from knowing fully well that you are going to be there in maximum 8 years. But that's not what they're saying. But it's the human spirit to do that. But the Lagos State example that you have given is very instructive. Look, in 1967, or even up to the early 70s, the local governments comprising Lagos State, the number of local governments was 20. The same with Kano, because they have an equivalence of population thereabout. Today, as we speak, Kano State has been split into two. The original Kano State has about 40 or 50 local governments.
44.
44. Jigawa State has about 30, 34 local governments, right? You add the two together, you get something like 70-something local government. This Lagos State here has remained, as 20 local governments. But it all exists. The unfairness of it all was a military diktat. But again now, it brings us back to the issue of constitutional reform. In federalism, the standard is 2 tiers of government. You don't create a 3rd tier of government outside the purview of the state government. That is number one. I will come back to it. If you want to create a local government now, which was a point that Obasanjo was making at that time, you need to amend the constitution. Because the number of local governments in the country, 760 years, is there in the constitution. So you must be able to amend for you to do that. Now, but secondly, of course, is the fact that, and that, of course, goes back to the issue of constitutional reform. If you have constitutional reform, it is the business of the state to create local government. The local governments that they want. That was what, and politically, Tinubu was right. But legally, at that time, I don't think he was.
Right. Mr. Osuntokun, pardon me. There's a point, because as we wind down now, there's something I need you to speak to as a matter of urgency. There are reports that President Tinubu may be back in the country after 14 plus days. The meeting he went for last ended April the 29th, but plus 5-6 days he was away, and a lot of Nigerians were wondering where he was. But there are reports that he's back in the country. But the point I'm trying to make is, you worked with the president, and there were debates around, should Nigerians know where the president is at this time? Should they not know? What is the standard, Mr. Osuntokun, as we wind down?
Well, there's nothing to add to that. Nigerians are entitled to know where their president is on a minute-by-minute basis. That is the simple answer to that. On a minute-by-minute basis. And of course, and the logic is simple. For instance, if Kenya invades Nigeria today, right? The idea is that the man who should take the decision must be in situ or where he is to respond to it. This kind of, you create a lacuna, in governance. We had a lot of it when President Buhari was there, and we all know the consequences of that. So again, this is what we're having again all over. And it's a simple, straightforward thing. The country, nobody is compelled to seek the office of the president. If you are the president of Nigeria, right, we deserve to know where you are at any time. But that is...
Thank you so much. Dr. Akin Osuntokun is a former DG, Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, as well as a fellow Nigeria Academy of Letters, with other things you are that we can list right here. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll come back now. We're still talking state of the nation. We're going to be joined by legal practitioner And of course, Daniel Bwala joins us as we continue to espouse the issue of the state of the nation. Join us again.